First contact isn't a spaceship, right? Arriving on the White House lawn. These are interdimensional civilizations, very advanced civilizations of light. And through interdimensional travel with their light ships, they are coming closer and closer and closer to this planet because the planet's becoming more interdimensional, right? With her interdimensional consciousness as the blue jewel. And therefore, these other galactic civilizations can arrive and be of assistance as our human race goes through its developmental stages with more support. There must be enough trust built inside of the human body to surrender into the great unknown, to allow that interdimensional stargate inside of each and every one of us to activate.
Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, beloved hearts. We have another quantum conversation on this Interdimensional Summit series. Today we are talking with Reverend Devi Grace, who is someone who is galactic, who is tuned in and tapped into her interdimensionality. And we're going to learn about that. Devi is a walk-in on numerous occasions, and she is here on her mission, sharing the ascension for humanity and what we can expect. Hi, Devi. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with the Star family and the Soul family here in New Earth One Network.
So, what do you know about interdimensionality and even galactic consciousness? It feels like we are definitely on the threshold, and many are in the awareness of galactic consciousness. And yet, here we are as humanity moving into an awareness of interdimensional beings, whether that be disincarnate humans, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials, right? I mean, angels as well. And
Yes.
so, what do you know about interdimensional beings or interdimensionality?
Well, the beauty of it is that a walk-in isn't even possible if interdimensionality didn't exist. And we have stated together on numerous occasions that I'm not your traditional interdimensional. My interdimensional consciousness allows me to be a quantum time traveler. And that means each time or moment I walked in from the future. And to interdimensionally travel from a more evolved, more awakened, or what you would call the already ascended Earth, and then reverse engineer that universal truth in that quantum interdimensional future, and then lace it or weave it and coalesce it and anchor it and ground it into this dimension where humanity is at now. So the whole principle of the archetype of the walk-in is available through this exciting space-time travel called interdimensional consciousness. So that's maybe an easier way that people can relate to, well, how on earth did you allow so many octaves to occupy the same body? So I have an interdimensional body, and another way of saying that is I have a holographic body. So interdimensional and holographic are very supportive. And if you have access to holographic consciousness, then you can interdimensionally travel and engage and interact with these different octaves or teleplanes of consciousness. It's all happening simultaneously. And yet for the human psyche, this is an extremely expanded awareness to embrace. And it's at the level of first contact, because you're not going to have this communion and this intimacy with the galactics without this interdimensional heart being able to embrace that first contact isn't a spaceship, right, arriving on the White House lawn. These are interdimensional civilizations, very advanced civilizations of light. And through interdimensional travel with their light ships, they are coming closer and closer and closer to this planet because the planet's becoming more interdimensional, right? With her interdimensional consciousness as the blue jewel. And therefore, these other galactic civilizations can arrive and be of assistance as our human race goes through its developmental stages with more support. One of which those major themes I'm discussing with you today.
Thank you for that. That is so mind-blowing and expansive. And wow, so you are living it. And would you say that we are all interdimensional?
That's where we're going.
That's where we're okay.
There must be enough trust built inside of the human body to surrender into the great unknown, to allow that interdimensional stargate inside of each and every one of us to activate. And so this is what we've referred to as the living Holy Grail. When people start drinking from the cup of life, you could say that that is interstellar, like doshite kumbandaya shite. Like most of my language is the interstellar language of the planet. Kotaite shiti kumpanananaye shutora tapara. Okay, that's like interstellar frequencies that are rising up, right, from that crystalline consciousness beneath our feet. So she already has her stargates that have started to open. She is an interstellar planet, and she's modeling that. And as a living organism, humanity is being invited to join with this awakening process that this whole living organism is already going through. So we're kind of like catching the wave that's already started.
So we don't really have to do anything, do we? Or do we? We need
Well, that's what we talk about, the romancing of the Mother, Father, God within, because in order to open those stargates, there's a depth of inner intimacy that is that bond with the totality of who we are. And it's a falling in love with ourselves to such great degree of trust that the human psyche can actually let go and let itself be opened up into that interstellar quantum experience of all the different frequencies of light that we are, still being housed in the miracle of this body. It can be overwhelming, and therefore that's why it's kind of like a courtship. That's why I utilize that sensuality or romancing concept, because it's your interdimensional self that's romancing you from your higher octaves. And it's far more sophisticated than this idea of a higher self. It's kind of like that was for that phase of human evolution. When you move into interstellar consciousness, the whole concept of the higher self is no longer applicable. There's too much consciousness, right, to engage. And the closest terminology is the oversoul. So we're outgrowing concept of highest self and more embracing the interstellar oversoul, which is a gradation of frequencies, which is a song and a symphony of our light spectrum. And that's something that's brand new for human race. Completely, totally, right? We're so much in our individual rapport with, the higher octaves of our own being. To surrender into interstellar can be quite humbling because it can be quite super saturating. Like, oh my gosh, I'm all that light. Well, yes, you are all that light. And so that's why I did that epic transmission on the 12 sphere tree of life right before the winter holidays, to even start bringing in the geometry, the mathematics, the physics of how even this is physically possible. in the complete space-time matrix that we find ourselves inside of. So that tree is inviting us beyond the 12th dimension into that space of coherent interstellar. And so for me, that coherent interstellar is the 13th and the 14th and the 15th dimensions that are vibrating in that space of innocence because they've known no separation. It's just pure, right? Golden rule. And there's no interstellar, right? Disagreements or conflicts, right? Over, who's vying for the resources of this whole planet and all that stuff that, our ancestors have really been dealing with in a very difficult way. And, you may have heard, that the golden ages didn't last. Well, that was because of interdimensional interference, not of the nice kind. So I get that this is intimidating because a lot of times when we have been outmatched, it was an interdimensional consciousness that the human race just wasn't prepared, right, to interface with that stage of our development. And so now we bring back these original Arc of Grace timelines, these original Tree of Graces, geometries and infrastructures to hold that purity so that we don't repeat those old versions. No more. No, thank you. And I know I keep referencing. It's just to acknowledge that the trauma transpired, that's deeply stored in the cellular, deep basement of those memories. And that's usually why people might unconsciously be resisting their interstellar consciousness. So just truth be told, just get that out on the table. This has been a difficult, what do you call it, interface for us to navigate, because sometimes it's really been overwhelming and not in a nice way. Good news is we've reached this frequency of literally choosing love, and the ascension timeline, I call it the organic grace timeline, is inevitable. So all those other layers are just purifying, purifying, purifying. And it's, sloughing off like the snake that molts and sheds its skins. So there's more confidence now to engage in the mystery. Interstellar is interchangeable with the great mystery. The interstellar is interchangeable with the great mystery. The intergalactic is exchangeable with the great mystery, because our human minds, until they've completely gone holographic, have really no conception of how much love we're about to inherit, which is so exciting. And it requires a place to be received. So that's why we have these explorations, so that enough of our wild spectrum can open up to accept and allow the support that's coming in. And it comes in through that interstellar multidimensional light body in our human vessel. That's the miracle.
Oh my goodness. People are going to want how we do this and what needs to be done. And you use the word surrender. So how do we surrender? And how do we begin to receive the light, the energy, the awareness?
As it was explained to me, basically, in all of my near-death experiences, this is a gift. It's not something humanity is being asked to comprehend or fathom or register with their logical left brain. It's moving into that realization that we do have the capacity to own our divine child. And that in this ancestral interstellar grace, the parents of all of our parents, and the parents of all of our grandparents, and the parents of all of our great-great-great-grandparents are the divine parents, the king and queen of heaven, which we refer to archetypally, as the Lord and Lady of heaven. And as humanity raises its frequency, as Gaia is going through her tantric, right, maturation process, she's coming alive into the goddess of a planet that she is with her beloved divine counterpart. Father Earth is that new shift of the magnetic poles that's happening inside of her. So they're romancing themselves awake. What's overseeing all of this is the primordial creator and creatrix of us all. And they promised to usher the human race through this transfiguration process, because you can't pray or meditate or do enough spiritual practices to take yourself through a threshold that is this momentous, that is this miraculous, that is this magical. So this is quantum magic. And so there's a bit of embracing the fantasy and the legends and the legacy that they have been preparing us with, all of these stories of us receiving these grace-filled miracles as their worthy children. And that's the safe spot to get out of the ordinary and into the magical. And once we're into that magical space, then the surrender is possible, because then all of those core concerns, which is the human hypervigilance in the limbic system, it's like, oh, I'm just surrendering into Mother, Father, God, Source, Creation's love for me. Oh, and it's unconditional love for me. Oh, and it has nothing to do with, all of my family patterns, right? Where humanity has just been tricked by those other levels that you need to work to receive. And even that is a spiritual misunderstanding, like, the 5,000 Buddhist prostrates that you have to do in order to be worthy, to sit before, the Bodhi tree's anointment of shunyata. This was to keep us focused, to keep us committed, and yet those training wheels aren't really relevant, because the moment you move into interstellar, then it's all consuming. And so at that speed and velocity of light, it's the capacity to let go and give it room to literally consume us, and know that that's okay. And then, watch Interstellar, right? With your inner divine child, and go study that movie, because, that was a pretty intimidating experience for Matthew, even in his acting process to prepare himself for that role of, how do I show the terror and the awe of moving into an interstellar space, and the bravery and the courage that it took for him to take that leap. So it's like, you're walking into literally a Stargate, and you have no idea what's on the other side. Like, whoa, 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 where is this Stargate taking me? Well, profound interdimensional divine love. If we've never experienced that, how are we supposed to even know what that is on a biological level? Sometimes it just doesn't translate. And so right now, the Divine Mother, the Divine Father, and all our interstellar and intergalactic relatives are preparing the human race to receive this astronomical amount of love that is our destiny to inherit. So we're utilizing the metaphors of your inheritance, right? Your endowment, and what you are inheriting from these higher octaves, because you're already worthy and you're already deserving, and it's a magical journey like Harry Potter. And we need to utilize fantasy to access this part of our imagination, because it's going to be an extraordinary, imagine-filled, grace-filled, magic-filled journey. And those are the best human words for it. Otherwise, I stop after using English. What's coming, I can't even begin to describe in English. And I mean, no disrespect to earthling language. The vibration, even of our language systems, doesn't prepare us. Logical? No. Vibrational? Yes. It's a pure vibrational experience. So imagine, right, that this experience of the unconditional, right, supernatural mother and the unconditional supernatural father that's just embracing you and holding you in your deepest fear. Like, it's okay, my child. You can do this. You can let go. Let us love you more than you've ever let yourself be loved before. It's basically translating and allowing interstellar love to feel safe to a human body. And it's stronger than Kundalini. Those of you that think you've had a Kundalini awakening, just you wait. Interstellar is a whole other, right, continuum. So this is quite the arrival crew that's coming. And it's through ourselves as that living light ship. It's not something that comes down from the skies. I mean, that's eventually going to greet us. Once we've greeted this part of ourselves, we're not going to be able to see that on the outside until we experience that on the inside. So awaken your mothership within and welcome to interstellar consciousness.
Beautiful. I hope that you can do, well, your light language is already an activation for us, and we are
Yes.
feeling it's really spectacular. Can you share with us a special transmission and a tool and an experience for us, please, around this?
Yes. They have prepared us for us today. And so it's analogous to some of the references that you'll see in Men in Black. And so go to that science fiction part of yourself and see yourself get suited up in your most elegant or snazzy spacesuit or space dress that you can imagine, and see that you are being given beloved escorts. And of course, I refer to them as the Star Nation ancestors. And you're being taken to what we used to have on the planet and still do have is hidden star bases. And for me, one of those hidden star bases is Mount Shasta or Zion National Park. You know, the big, huge, epic, right? Portals of all portals on our planet. For some people, you know, it's in the Egyptian pyramids. For you, you know, for other people, it's the buried pyramids in Mexico, where you have already within the body of the earth the interstellar stargates that are active. And feel that you are lovingly, like we saw in the Lord of the Rings, being invited to an invisible door. And that these two celestial bodies of both the sun and the moon are behind you, one representing the Divine Mother and one representing the Divine Father in the celestial bodies. And they're happening simultaneously, but they're not eclipsing each other. They're side by side and they're radiating this beautiful language on the side of the mountain in front of you. Right? And you know that you are also being given these beautiful languages of light on the backside of your body, as much as you also see them, right, on the walls of the side of the mountain. And then you see this beautiful door that says, Open Sesame. You get to feel yourself be escorted into this beautiful mountain temple space. It's going to look different for each and every one of you. Just know that the walls are glowing. There's no fire. There's no external light. It's the inner radiance of the inner earth. And then go back to your child fantasies of your favorite mythic creatures that you just adored, right? Whether they were griffins or phoenixes or dragons, or unicorns, or whatever that magical creature was that stirred the imagination of your pure heart. Feel them greeting you and escorting you to this second gateway, which you would usually see at the security clearance for a Men in Black inter-Earth, very special, right? Starbase. And they're going to scan you. So if you would please hold up your right hand and hold up your left hand and feel them scan on your right side all of your divine masculinity of all of your lifetimes, all of that conscious masculinity that you carry. They're reading that, registering that, and holding that in high respect and high reverence. Great, you've cultivated that end of your being. On the left side, feel them scanning all of your divine conscious femininity and all that is the goddess within you, that is that consort and that divine complement to that masculinity that's awake within you. And then imagine that they're scanning also your third eye. And then you can open your eyes and feel them looking into the portals of your soul and gazing into, through your eyes, into your inner twin flame, that inner God spark of the balanced male and female, beloved divine union inside of you. And as they're looking at you and your twin flame, you can close your eyes again and then feel your twin flame step forward from behind you. This is a gift. It's a really big gift, and embrace you. And then your twin flame puts his or her hands on your heart and says literally, I love you unconditionally because I am you. What makes this possible is because this cave is an interdimensional space, and most of us, right, have our twin flame in the spirit world. So this allows the miracle of heaven and earth to come together. And grab the hand of your twin flame. Now walk through that second door and into the Starbase headquarters. Much like you would see even in like the Jedi family reunion in the Star Wars trilogies, or actually the 9 Star Wars films. And may you and your twin flame go find a cozy little seat, please, at this beautiful, again, glowing round table that's been prepared for all of us listening to this broadcast today, or even at a later date and time. Doesn't matter when you tune in, might even be 2026. You're still here, present with us in the eternal now. And a part of you is in awe because you get to see that each and every twin flame gathered, is now feeling the ceiling open, 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 open in this mountain. And you're just so amazed that even the ceiling can open. And the twin flame of us all, this beautifully robed king and queen of starlight, starts coming down, because that's the best way that we can kind of relate to them, as like our royal star parents. Royal meaning they are the good king and the good queen, and they take good care of their children. And then they come down into the center of this circle where all of the twin flames are gathered. And each and every one of you feels yourself reflected in one of the gems in their garments. So when they shimmer, something inside of you quivers and shimmers as well. And that's how you start to feel the interconnectedness, that you are a part of them and that they are a part of you. And yes, it's a yummy vibration, and it's warm and it's tingly, We call it the holographic heart cell. And let that holographic heart cell travel through your body and travel through the body of your divine complement, which is your eternal twin flame, which knows no death. This is a really big dispensation of grace because you're not having a near-death experience right now. You're fully alive and you're inside the magic chamber of this mountain and your twin flame is right beside you. So this cave, there is no veil present. And that's the magic and that's the miracle. It's the meeting between the worlds and everyone feels that. So all those membranes are dissolved and you feel the love now of all these other celestial cohorts that are coming down, which are more familiar to you as the twin ray avatars. And they are your special older brothers and sisters. Some of you know them by like Saint Germain and Lady Portia, or Christ and Magdalene, or Rama and Sita, but also the galactics, like Sanat Kumara and Lady Venus, Helios and Vesta, Tara and Babaji, and on and on. So there's other beloveds, of course, that live in the cosmic realms that have graduated from the human realms. So you can really feel the presence of all the different lords and ladies, the female ascended masters and the masculine ascended masters that are behind you. And also around the mountain, holding space so that you can really register that your divine mother and divine father are real and an intimate part of your awakening process to relate to them in this way as a trinity. And because they are, excuse me, interdimensional light, feel them, both of them, now bring their hands together like you see with a hand fasting, and see this gold and platinum and iridescent light come, right, and put their wrists together like the hand fasting that represents that they're married. And we deeply apologize if any of the world religions tried to deny that they weren't married, because that's a misconception or an outright lie. They are married, have always been married, and will always be married. And that means that every face of divinity includes this beloved mother-father sacred union. Sorry about that. That's them chiming in. And in this hand fasting union, just feel them placing their heart on your heart. So you want to put one hand on your heart and feel them put their other hand on your heart. And now accept this transmission from them. Bathing through your whole body, and yet it's coming through both of their hands wrapped in that wedding. Twinnings, and that's what's going to pour into your body right now. And actually, for the rest of this conversation, they're going to have their hands on you, won't remove them, and it's going to filter in that sacred marriage as a gift. And this is what you would have had if you were born into an awakened civilization. And so now you get to have it now.
Thank you so much. What a gift. What a gift. And I just want to say, what could be what could be a resistance or a hindrance for people to truly behold this? Maybe you want to share a little bit about that. Have you seen that with any of the people that you work with and activate?
Yes.
Mhm.
One of the levels that's really supportive is call in a reference point that's closer to this. And we have spoken of Lemuria. So if you relate to Lemuria, then this isn't a foreign concept. So in order for you to be in this conversation right now, because the whole planet's not ready for this conversation, to witness a hand fasting, right, from the heavens coming down, you had to have had this experience before. So whether it's Lemuria or Mu, or even an earlier stage of Atlantis, right, before it became too patriarchal, just ask yourselves, can you pull up that file where this used to be a ceremony that we would have, say, maybe every 100 years, because we lived a lot longer. And so, 100 years is like a blink of an eye. And so if that's gone into amnesia, please ask that file to be rebooted. So if there's resistance, okay, one of the strategies is, will you please reboot within my body, mind, heart, and soul right now between Lauren and Devi, who have been in Lemuria together, for that recollection to come back. Enough of yourself sandwiched between the two of us, because she's saying yes and I'm saying yes. And yet, the forgetting happens. It's nothing personal. And if you're around other folks like Lauren and I that already accept this as truth, can you take that leap of faith and allow from underneath you, from the telluric powers, this rising of that recollection to be restored? And let yourself know that it doesn't have to happen right now. It can happen maybe in meditation later on tonight. Maybe it happens in a dream. Maybe it happens tomorrow morning. Eventually, you're going to let this in, and it doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be, all one kit and caboodle. Some people, it's too much for the left brain to kind of soften, and maybe they're out walking in the woods and they put their back up against the tree, and the tree people, right, whisper this into that recollection, and then they remember this broadcast and they're like, oh gosh, that's what she was talking about. Okay, that's easy. So just because you're in front of your computer and inside, don't expect it to automatically just register. You might need to be, for me, it was like swimming, right? In the La Jolla shores, the gorgeous, kelp beds and seals, or when you're swimming with dolphins, or you're out riding the horses, and you're feeling free. So you've got to feel free and, at one with something that's connected to nature, because these civilizations inside the mountain is very much connected to the power of nature. And you kind of just let it overtake you. And you're having so much fun that you can't argue with it. So it's
Yes.
okay.
And so, it's like these moments of bliss, actually.
Oh,
Um,
mm-hmm.
Today I was driving in my car and I just was, and nothing special about me driving in my car, but something, maybe it was a nature spirit. It was something that shifted my energy.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about. These are these moments of bliss that when we just allow it. And, there was no need for contemplation on this. I didn't expect it. I just felt this feeling of, I just love everything right now. And that's what you're talking about, right? And so let it flow. Why am I hearing that song? Let your love flow. Let it flow.
Yes. Let it flow. That's it. And because the avatars are there, it can flow from just one recollection.
Ah,
If you remember, oh my gosh, I remember this moment, right, with Christ and Magdalene. Oh my gosh, I remember this moment with the tellurics, right? The shining ones. It might have been the king and queen of the Fae. It might have been the king and queen, right, of the elven worlds. It doesn't have to be an ascended master octave. It might be one of the magical shining ones, and you're inside of a cave, right? Like those caves in Hawaii, and they have the inner places where you can swim. Oh my gosh, those are so much fun. And you're swimming inside of the caves in Kauai, and you're like, oh, they're here, right? For some people, it's the mermaids, and you feel a representation of um, a Neptune, an amphitrite, right? You feel the Mer King and the Mer Queen come up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got it, I got it, I got it. It's here. It just takes one. The one is in the many. Toshita Balaita. Or you can play the replay, right? People play the replay right before they go to bed. You like, okay, like, all right, this is a possibility, and I'm going to play this right before I go to sleep, and then I'm going to turn it over to my superconscious, infinite creativity, and then you can kind of dream it into being. Just takes a little bit of practice sometimes. That came from years and years of ceremony. Sometimes you need to actually have a shamanic ceremony and invite them in, right? And get off your computer and sorry about the phone thing, get off your phone. No electronics around you whatsoever, like for a few hours. No electronics for like 4 to 5 hours. And then, right? See if the vision can become available. Now, you're talking to an oracle, so I've been having visions with them for, decades, and I don't expect it to just, drop in. However, we're in this quickening, we're in this accelerated phase, and so got to plant that seed. So even that meditative journey, feel it for you. It's just a seed. Like, okay, I have openness and receptivity, then we'll take it. That's where it begins.
Yes, so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much for this.
And if you're a sci-fi fan, I mentioned
Interstellar.
Interstellar. I
That's a
mentioned Men in Black. Okay. I mentioned, real things. The other one is, X-Men before you can get into the X-Men, like real the chambers, right? For an actual X-Men, whatever the metaphor is, not mine, make it yours. It's a very special entrance and access. The whole point is the entrance and the access. The second key is that it's a holographic, right? Heart cell. And that means that your heart is within their heart and their heart is within your heart. So there's the synergization. So those three levels, you've got to go through the gateways. You've got to feel, right, this holographic synergy. And then there's the suspension of disbelief and being in the magic and the wonder of like, oh, wow.
That's magical, the suspension of disbelief, because that would be something that trips everyone up from that Stargate, from that experience. All right, so beautiful. So enjoy this journey, everyone. Enjoy. Go hug a tree, turn off the electronics, watch the clouds, watch the sky, and let that, it's almost like a welling up within us. And just pay attention, right? Pay attention.
Or create an outing. For me, in the national parks, the Mojave National Parks, there's a very special cave, and you have to make an appointment, and they only let you make appointments on Mondays, and then you have to drive in only on Fridays. So they restrict the access. For me, sometimes it's going into these caves that are physically, illuminated, and it brings back the memory of the stalagmites and the stalactites and the glowing inner chambers like we used to have common access to. So for some people, it's physically seeking out crystal chambers, make a pilgrimage. For other people, there's the national park that has all the hot springs, like 6 hot springs in Arkansas or something. They make it a special trip. It's it's worth it. If it's a 3-hour drive, go someplace special that you know that you're making a special outing and this is your adventure, and take a recording of that quote unquote transmission and bring it with you when you're in your chosen like paradise. And I've been waiting. I told my teams 3 years ago I was going to go to that cave, and I still haven't gone yet. It's on my calendar. So look what's awaiting me. I've even had this experience with them a million times, and it's going to go to a whole other octave even for me. Do you see what I mean? I have done that with them every Epiphany up at the Grand Tetons. So for me, that came straight out of the Grand Tetons, and we do it every Epiphany when Mothership Bethlehem comes in. So that's just one example.
Oh, okay. Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, just see me at the Grand Tetons, and that's where they brought that to me. So that's where your message came from. I mean, that's why there are these national parks. And it happened again in Zion. And I'll confess, I mean, I've said this before, I snuck in at night and they did it again on a full moon. And I had all of Zion National Park to myself.
So this is a question, we just want those national parks to stay protected, but then there's something about this control over them. Is that because there's so many people that want access to them? So do you see that as an okay thing? That you have to make a reservation on Monday? Because my liberal free spirit is like,
I
oh,
know, I know.
I mean,
I confess, I'm a holy rebel,
yeah,
and
me
when
too.
my guides tell me to sneak in to a place that's, you know, um, I've snuck in on more than one places, and even if they see me, they can see my aura, and then they know you're supposed to be there.
Okay.
Okay. It's
And you
like in Egypt, they were like, oh my God, she's Isis. So
uh,
you're not sneaking in because they're like, it's Mama Isis, right? In Mexico, they saw Guadalupe all around me, and they're like, the Mama Guadalupe, and they're not going to interfere.
wow.
Okay,
Oh,
so there's
it's
stories of
vibration.
like military or park rangers. I've had park rangers turn into Archangel Gabriel and Archangel Michael.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And the park rangers let me go in so I could work with the lady of the lake after hours. Just all kinds of magical stuff where the cops aren't the cops and the park rangers aren't the park rangers and the security guards aren't the security guards. They can shapeshift, right? And they can kind of go like, okay, this one's supposed to be here, and they're going to be in respect, and they don't, because the systems are there to also keep out the hooligans
Right.
that would
Right.
defame. And so be clear with the purity of your intent that you go in service, because I'm like, these are huge grid installations, so I'm being of service, and so that holy rebel isn't just for the kicks. It's like I'm on assignment, and somehow I get shown the pathway in, and they may see me out of their quarter of their eye, but they may see Isis or they may see Guadalupe, right? Or I think they saw me as like the Lady of the Lake,
Mm.
so we can shapeshift too. And then they say it's one of our own beloved spirits, like doing their job.
Yes. Okay. It's your service commitment,
Mhm,
purity, integrity, and it's a vibration. It's
mhm.
really a vibration. And that's what allows you to almost be either invisible or shape into something that they think is something beautiful, right? Or divine.
And asking permission from the land itself to be there,
It's key.
so that I'm honoring my agreement to source. And I've showed up to honor that agreement and then asking for permission to be there, which is the final touch.
Yes. Okay. So beautiful. I know all are going to want to get out on the land and to go to those magic spots and commune and do those ceremonies, ceremonies of remembrance of our soul and what is carried within us as this blossoms through us. Okay. Is there,
And
go ahead, Jeff, say some more.
you can even grab Marion Zimmerman Bradley's The Mists of Avalon and go see that Hioros Gamos part of that book, where the high priest and the high priestess are preparing for this alchemical ceremony. So for those of you that love to read, it's in Marion Zimmerman Bradley's, right? The Mists of Avalon. Okay, the parting of the veils and the God and the goddess coming together for the Hieros Gamos. It can take many different iterations. So you might actually get it from an author who's actually had this experience. I mean, how could she write that gorgeous book and not have some of these experiences? You see what I mean? You know, she went there. And so same thing with J.K. Rowling, she interfaced with the realms of magic. So whatever your favorite book is, even to go to that part of that book where it had the most magical, right? Immersion, go reread that and put yourself in it. That's another way to access it. It's our infinite creativity.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the prophecy, because a prophecy means that this transmission has already been foretold. And so many people think of the prophecy of the great tree of unlimited prosperity. What the heck is this? And so back in the golden ages, there would be these huge festivals where massive amounts of gold and silver, and this is written about in Barbara Wilder's book, Reclaiming the Sacred Origins of Money. And there were these festivals in honor of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. And the tree, right, was this organizing, lavished, like exquisite offering of love and appreciation for that which gives life in both its conscious male and female form, and all the jewels, right, shimmering with silver, and all the jewels shimmering with gold, and all of this, right, was placed at the base of this tree as a huge thank you to our divine parents for blessing us with good health. For them, the riches and the wealth was for good health, good crops, agriculturally being blessed, right, with the bounty from the earth, and also no conflicts with other surrounding civilizations, so no war, no disagreements, and also fortuitous trade routes, right? Trade coming in, beautiful gifts coming in from other parts of the planet, and then being invited, right, to go off to Mesopotamia and also bring their wares. And so that's where we started to bring in this tree of unlimited prosperity, because we knew that every great bounty, every great receivership of that, it looked like astronomical amounts of abundance, came to us from the Mother Father source code. And if you go through that ceremony, once a year it was held, then this is way more real, because then you get to see all the riches before you. And there was no concept of money in terms of my account or my resources or my assets. It's inconceivable to modern times, because everybody has my checkbook and my bank card, that they all came together and they put all their resources together and said thank you. That all bounty came from the source of unlimited supply. And that they are husband and wife, God has a wife, and that they're so gracious towards all of us that every fortuitous experience and encounter, every conception, right? The healthy children, all conceptions also received were from those two primordial beloved twins. And there was this relationship of a continuity, an unending capacity to keep receiving from the source again and again and again. So that's in your bones with your positive ancestral memories of these ceremonies that happened once a year to recognize the source of all resource. And then if you move into the more shamanic cultures, which could actually partake of psychedelic substances, right, that opened up with the DMT, then they could start see the high frequency beings that also mimicked the same ceremony. And their awe and wonder went to a whole other scale of like, oh, that ceremony that we do, it lives in the other realms. And so this is, you know, the toad medicine, the pure spirit molecule, when you start opening up that fractal consciousness and you can really start seeing like the great tree. And those of you that have the shamanic gifts, that they were, you know, brought to you because they're in your bloodline, and you have the sight and you have the vision and you don't need the DMT. These are magical trees. And you utilize whatever Goshkara jititi antonte bianto shiti son kanta bantari andote pathway. Jipotashite, where you can walk through that rainbow membrane. And see what already exists. So the prophecy is we already exist and we're already here. It's in a quantum parallel dimension. And this was normally for medicine women or medicine men or people having pretty high ecstatic states, right, of communion with the beloveds of all life. And they could see this massive tree with all of these fibers of light currency. And the promise, the great promise, is that all these fibers of light currency would eventually ground into this dimension. So that we could outgrow our conditioning of lack and limitation on a global scale. Because people accepted that that was part of the equation when we came down into third dimensional reality. Okay, well, that's great because that exists in those dimensions. And in the realms of high magic, they have, you know, unlimited prosperity. And in this physicalized reality, we need to XYZ, right, in order to procure resource. But Tatiana, and that's the way it's been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It doesn't mean, though, that the promise of the dissolution of the veils, which you call an ascension process, would bring the worlds together. And what vibrated, right on the other side of the veil, and what vibrates now in our direct experience are merging. And this is one of the reasons why the United States Space Force is such a pivotal organization for those of us in North America, because the Star Nations have already developed the technology for the quantum financial system. And they've completely gifted it to United States Space Force. United States Space Force is a military operation, and they are under secrecy, right? They cannot necessarily go blabbing to the rest of the planet right now. Oh, well, we have received advanced, right, intergalactic, interstellar technology. And when it is deemed divinely appropriate for these new systems to be introduced slowly to the human race without chaos happening, right? These doorways that were once mythical now become practical. Integration of a new paradigm. And so for those of you that know about the white hats, our heavenly armies, we have our heavenly armies on Earth. And that quantum financial system will never be released if we have any of the hooligans, right, still attempting to hide in remote little pockets because they're notorious for liking to hijack things. But the fatigue de tejon la terra, and I know I mentioned before Project Looking Glass. And so what they've seen in Project Looking Glass is that this transition into a quantum reality is inevitable. But even through the military technology that wanted to suppress that Project Looking Glass even existed. What we don't know, which is really honest, are the last 7 chess moves that has us go through that corridor of claiming that birthright. So what legions of consciousness is saying to us today with me as their chosen messenger, not just Mother, Father, Source, the armies of God, the legions of consciousness, where this tree of unlimited prosperity already exists. Do your work, humans, right? So that you can dissolve all doubt, where you can dissolve all resistance, where you can dissolve all skepticism, where you can dissolve all trauma, where you can dissolve all disbelief, where you can dissolve all of those coping mechanisms that you had to develop to survive, right? And kind of the harshness of this, economic system that's basically been run by greed and corruption, for thousands of years unchecked. So why is the human race just supposed to magically believe that all of that corruption's just going to, disappear out of nowhere? Well, that's not how it transpires. So the United States Space Force is doing their part of the deal. So that's on their side of the equation with the white hats. Guess what? We also are charged with the responsibility to release our fear and to release where maybe we did have these experiences and we know these prophecies to be true. However, the doors between dimensions collapsed, or maybe the stargates were invaded and it didn't turn out very well. And so our hearts were broken and it looked like the age of Camelot, went down in ash. And we've got to recover from, being so close to being able to sustain. And then, something kind of messed it up. And those are deep wounds. And so our work is to cleanse whatever part of us in our blind spot gave up on that ever being able to happen again and succeed. Like some part of us may think, well, that was then, and we're never going to be given another chance to go back to that, incredible opportunity. It's not conscious. These are unconscious trepidations, and those are to be healed by the elixirs of the Holy Grail. It's one of the purposes of this technology. It's not a cup. It's technology of liquid light, and it can get into those deepest spaces of where the fractures occurred because you had to witness, like we said before, the whole dream kind of collapse. And the self-forgiveness of like, you didn't deserve this. The humanity didn't deserve this. Certain energies came in and they still wanted the old system to continue. And so they did their best to delay the prophecy. You can't prevent the prophecy from ultimately succeeding. It's only been delayed. So it's kind of like playing a game with yourselves of like, well, that was just a little detour. Doesn't mean it's gone. It may look like we had access to that, and then it looks like it may have been withdrawn, except now a new version is coming that is foolproof and non-hijackable. So here's the caveat, I promise you. The tree of unlimited prosperity from our divine parents in heaven is literally non-hijackable. It's pure and pristine. We've reached that point of being able to accept that much love. And so that's what's new and different.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Again, this takes me right back to Lemuria and the fall of that and the personal wounding that I feel within that. And now it is unhijackable again. So here we are. That is beautiful. And that is extremely good news. It in the world right now, it
Oh,
looks
yeah.
chaotic. It looks like we're going backwards in many ways, but this brings extreme faith. It takes faith, does it not? So
And
as
trust, faith and trust together with the holy warrior. So the archetypal energy of the holy warrior within us that can believe even when it's going to take, right, the blade of grace to get us there. The resistance is those 7 steps on the chessboard. Look at it from the what you would call the counter energy that's so used to getting its own way. If you were going to be told that your entire paradigm is collapsing, do you think that you would dig in tooth and nail and give it your best shot to prevent that from playing itself out? So this is there, as we say, it's the changing of the guard. Okay, the old empire is dying. However, the old empire is not dying without quite a temper tantrum. So what we're seeing with the chaos is the temper tantrum of the old guard. Like, what do you mean our time is up? What do you mean we have to, yield or acquiesce to the new paradigm? And can't you see them with their hands on their hips of like, well, we're not going anywhere. You can't make us. It's just, it's quite an attitude. From their perspective, if they've ruled the roost for thousands of years and always been able to get their way, they're just spoiled brats. That's the nicest way I could put it. World chaos is because of spoiled brats who are accustomed to getting their way and always being able to like interrupt this or postpone this. So if they've always been clever enough to interrupt this or postpone this, they're actually in full faith. Do you see the paradox? So this is a paradox for a reality check for those opposition energies to have it finally dawn on them. Oh, the gig is up and the game is over. And that's part of the right acknowledging of, okay, in that moment with, I guess it was Trinity and Neo Matrix Resurrections, right? Where they just came and said, thank you for giving us a second chance. And now we're just going to build the new world. But that resistance energy on the planet just assumes that there's no way we're actually moving forward into the new paradigm. And we are, even if they don't realize it. As we continue, right, to have all of these positive manifestations that this is inevitable, some of them are really going to have, right, a crisis point of like, I can't keep doing my job because it's futile. A lot of them haven't gotten that message yet of like, this is really, the gig is up. So patience is a virtue. And that's why they added the 5th element of perseverance. To have faith and to have trust and to have perseverance, because there's still systems that are very entrenched and they haven't realized that your services are no longer required. When they finally realize that the game is over and there's no other place to move or maneuver, that's coming. Until that moment happens, though, it's up to us to move forward with that conviction. And that's what I mean by royalty. royalty has to flow with that confidence and conviction because it's, taking care of the needs of its kingdom and queendom and can have, no doubt in order to provide for all of its people for their safety and their sanctuary. So this royal leadership is the knowing, not even the faith and the trust and the perseverance. Hold that line, hold that line, hold that line. And we're holding that line. And sometimes it's saying no 10 times. No. And coming back, excuse me, I said no. Right? You may have to say it a third time. Excuse me, we said no. It's the sacred no, which is the sacred yes. Know what you say yes to so that you can say what is no longer okay. And it's us saying no to what no longer serves, which also unplugs their systems. So that's our courage to break from the pack and be holy rebels.
Wow, Debbie Grace, thank you so much for this today. It is mind expansive and so comforting that we are holding the line. We are holding the light. We are holding it. Thank you. Thank you.
It is a
So,
light line, that's for sure. It's a light line. It's a
light,
vibrational line. Uh-huh.
vibrational line. Absolutely.
And
Okay,
it's lovingly fierce, just being honest.
great. Love that. We love it. Okay. So, okay, well, beautiful hearts who are watching us and joining us, we are going to talk about an opportunity now for you to go deeper in this. Devi has put together two wonderful experiences for you, and we invite you to check this out. Go deep with us, hold the light, and get activated and expand in your beingness. And
Yes.
this is beautiful. So, Devi, tell us about this special offer. Thank you.
Well, on the 222 portal, there is this ideal window that makes itself available for us to have a shared rite of passage where these initiations that we've already had to develop in other timelines get to be restored through a communal consensus. So if you can imagine like the Grail family restored, like the resurrection of the Grail family lineages is being reactivated, and we've already had these ceremonies with each other before, and now the opportunity to reconvene is making itself known on the 222 of 2025, so that what has been promised to us as that leadership elixir that we get to receive first from the cup of all miracles into that atomic structure of our body and being, so that these deep, deep memories of what we're actually capable of, what our innate gifts are that we've, denied, suppressed, or pretended don't exist. How many of you have been pretending that you aren't who you are? So this is the Mufasa moment when he was, out in the desert, and, the kings and the queens of the ages before, shined down upon him, and he looked into the water, and Mufasa said, remember who you are my son. So this is where the kings and the queens, right, of the star ancestors in the heavens initiate us into who we truly are in a group remembering, because it doesn't happen on an individual level. It's just we receive the initiations before in council, and we return to receiving these initiations with each other again in council. So it's really everyone's yes colliding and coalescing in this communion. So it's a wedding ceremony for sure. That's the theme that we play out again and again. And it's happening with what's happening on the planet, with the realization that the other pieces of the puzzle are in play and we're closer than ever before. So there's the readiness and the ripeness of the opening of that fruit of destiny. So we crack open that pomegranate, the fruit of destiny, and also partake of its juices as a willing sign of surrendering to our greatness. How much can you let go to allow your full gifts to surface? So that takes this Jedi precision of shared coherence. So it's a Holy Grail heart coherence experience for sure. And it's through the 5 elements, and it's allowing us to access the quintessence of that 5th element with each other, because that's the galvanizing spark. We bring all of the earth and the air and the fire together with the water. When we access the 5th element together, that's where turnkey, right? Beauty begins for real. It's all dormant until you do the turnkeys together, the 5th element inside of each and every one of us, galvanizing. It's a beautiful thing.
Wow. So everyone join us to, to receive the initiations with the group, that group support, that group light. Very cool.
And the group keys.
And the group keys.
And the group crowns, because you've already been, coronated in these other lifetimes. And a lot of that's gone dormant. People don't acknowledge it, and you don't see it when you look at yourself in the mirror that you have this legacy living inside of you. It can be, maybe in the invisible, where the visible is made, right, accessible, because you're willing to finally admit to yourself, you've been fighting it, and playing small because it just didn't feel like you had what it took to carry that mantle forward with all your other, earthly responsibilities. Well, how can I play that part and then still fit into my everyday life? It's different when you can feel that there's a team of us stepping forward, of like, enough of, placating. There must be something more than this provincial life. So each of us has a key to offer each other. So it may be that person that's across the circle, from the southwest to the northwest. I am your divine key counterpart. So it's the key codes that come together, which is planned. And you may not realize it until, the morning of February 22nd. Oh my gosh, I have to be there. And we say yes.
Thank you for that. That is so incredible. So we know that those who resonate in their hearts with this, you are excited to sign up. We're excited for you. We're excited for this whole journey on this beautiful date of that 222 portal. So amazing, so fantastic and expansive. And it's a beautiful ceremony that we remember. We do remember that. Thank you.
It's kind of like an intergalactic Valentine's Day. You have the 3D Valentine's Day on the 14th. We'll go have your, interstellar Valentine's Day on the 22nd,
Dia de amor, dia de. Yeah. Okay, love it. And so then after this, there's an opportunity for one-on-one time with you. Tell us about this.
Well, everyone asked me, how do we begin the new spiritual economic paradigm? And I said, I'll honor Dr. Rianne Eisler, who echoed that it's the changing of the values. It's the prioritizing of the core values on a day-to-day basis and embodying them that makes that new reality even feasible. And so it's having an initiation into your sacred wealth blueprint through these core values that are synonymous with the sacred commerce, merchant priesthood, and merchant priestesshood lineages. So again, you have these core values that you've cultivated in other lifetimes when you've been initiated into the sacred economic guilds and other golden civilizations. And sometimes when your role was decommissioned, you put all that in safekeeping. So this is that reactivation into an active guild now for the return of the merchant priesthood and the return of the merchant priestesshood, and the realization that you've already deeply refined these core values that are needed to steward in leadership once the quantum financial system is galvanized, because it has to be backed by the gold that Asia has already promised, which the Dragon and Phoenix lines have been keeping, right, in their chambers for us for thousands of years. So the influx of this gold that already exists on the planet and has been kept in perpetuity for this auspicious moment. So it's like realizing that the treasure chest already exists, the phoenixes and the dragons have already been, safekeeping it, and it's just not quite in this dimension yet. So our family, our tribe has to be prepared to steward once that green light authorization out of Asia comes. And it won't come out of Asia until the Chinese and Asian ancestors feel that we are prepared enough to handle the responsibilities. How do you handle the responsibilities? You activate your noble core value codes and those oaths that we've taken and modernize them to, what does that look now in an intergalactic currency? Because it's not what it was. The Knights Templars physically, protected the transition routes of physical gold. Now we're working with, quantum currency. So it's going to be a learning curve. And of course, we're going to have United States Space Force and other organizations like that will teach people how to use these different currencies. However, the guardians have to be in place so that they can hold the integrity of the core values, so that the new paradigm of what Dr. Rian Eisler calls partnerism can actually begin to implement itself for real. So it's all of these geniuses coming together that have been, visioneering this for years conceptually, and you got to match it with the guild. So if you're coming for a reading, it's not a reading, it's the reactivation that you're actually already a member of this Sacred Commerce Guild, how it have always been. And as we've said, you're part of the 777,000 that are also the guardians of the original Ark of Grace. So those two job functions, right, interlock, and you just step into your birthright of that mantle that you knew you came into this lifetime to access. Like why else would we come back to finish this? Oh, this is your magnum opus opportunity to greet yourself and just get the refinements, get the alchemical gears whirling and swirling and dancing as they're meant to, and the sparks, like quivering, so that that which has been specially prepared for you can start to percolate and, right, glow inside of thee. And the dudes feel that power, surging through their body for protection of the new system through provision. Provision means that it's already been destined for you to inherit in congruence with your higher life purpose. So the key is the provision, that these are divine assets that have already been set aside for you even before you were born. And in Egypt, we called it, the God Bes, the God of sacred commerce, and every child received the blessing, God Bes of your spiritual bank account even before you were born. And that was just a natural, normal part of Egyptian culture. And your mother and human father would have taught you that you have this spiritual bank account with the God Bes set aside when you step up and do your real work. So it's stepping into that destiny path and realizing that these funds are only available if you're brave enough to step onto that destiny path, which is a leadership role. Ta-da! So there's a lot of levels, right, that just get woven back in because this isn't our first rodeo. It's like the crowning pinnacle of all the work that you've already done and just adding the cherry on the top of the sundae.
We are excited. This is so exciting and a beautiful time. And this is really powerful. Thank you so much, Devi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we invite our listeners, you can feel into this, sign up with Devi. We are so excited for you to become the initiate and then to step into this birthright. This beautiful program is here for you. Devi, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are flying high. and we are remembering our vast greatness. This is such an exciting time. Thank you for sharing with us. Final thought?
Yes,
Yes.
what they would like to say, which has also been coined by another brother of mine, imagine getting paid for being the real you.
Mhm.
Just let that concept sink in, that what we're talking about through this birthright is actually physically getting paid to be the true and authentic you by, your living soul family trust. So it's really, really special to even fathom that that's possible. And that's the paradigm we're walking into.
Wow. That's worthy of a sticky note so that we can all remember that. Physically getting paid for being you. I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this conversation and activation today. Life-changing. Namaste.
Namaste. See you soon.
And everyone, you can join Devi Grace on her programs. Check it out, and we are excited for you. Thank you for your love and light, and thank you, Devi. Bye. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.